But first, a movement to get kids out of classrooms with walls and into the great outdoors is picking up steam. Across the U.S., nature preschools are seeing a surge. Jeffrey Brown traveled to Midland, Michigan to find out why for our weekly education segment, Making the Grade.
Hunting for bugs, jumping off logs, dipping for frogs. It's what kids do, right? In fact, no, many don't. Certainly not as part of their education. But in the age of testing, screens, and some would say excessively coddled children, a new movement of nature preschools is growing and pushing kids outdoors. Jen Kurtz, a biologist by training, oversees educational programs at the nonprofit Chippewa Nature Center in Midland, Michigan. 1,200 acres of woodlands, wetlands, ponds, and meadows.
In a classroom, a lot of the things that you have are static and were designed to be played with in one particular way. The natural environment changes every single day. The weather changes, the humidity, there's scat left behind, there's new footprints, there's leaves that are chewed today that weren't chewed yesterday, and so there's just a natural curiosity that happens there. And it's something that people have spent time in for generations and generations. All of our existence, kids have grown up outdoors. That has changed in these current generations.
Students here spend most of the day outdoors. Some nature preschools don't even have indoor classrooms. The alphabet and language skills are emphasized, while the lab for other skills is all around.
When we're dipping in a pond and we are discovering what's there, that's life science right there. And when we're measuring trees and kids are then going around and designing things to do those measurements and to figure that out, that is engineering and problem solving and math.
And the idea is catching on. Nature preschools are seeing a surge in the U.S. 10 years ago, there were barely 20. Today, by one count, the number has grown to nearly 250.
A cow swimming away.
Is he swimming away?
Yeah.
These 3- and 4-year-olds learned about the life cycle of a frog and then went to the pond to catch some.
To see a child touch a frog that looks slimy and ooey and icky for them, and they're okay and their hands are shaking, and we gently put it in there for them and their face just glows.
What do we not want to touch? Poison ivy.
During a week-long summer camp, which closely mirrors the preschool program, teacher Kendall Cunningham led her charges to a meadow to catch insects and learn about the habitat.
A lot of the times when they say they don't like the insects, they don't want to touch them, but they want to watch. Watching it is different than handling it.
Madison Powell is director of the Chippewa Nature Preschool with 140 students during the school year and a growing wait list.
Children are so very scheduled. They're not allowed to be bored anymore. They're not allowed to play with things that are dangerous or that are messy. We want them to have those opportunities. We ask parents to look back at their childhood. What are some of the things you remember? Was it climbing a tree? Was it being covered in mud, stomping in puddles? And a lot of times it is. And if it's not their parents, it's their grandparents or some sort of relative who said, I grew up that way. I came home when the streetlights came on, that sort of thing. Right. And we're living in a society that just doesn't allow children to make many decisions for themselves.
Here, they're willing to push boundaries. We watched as one boy tried to tear down what he thought was a dead tree. First, he shook it to no avail, then tied a rope around the sapling's trunk to bring it down. Finally, he and a classmate managed to snap the tree. And now it really was a dead tree.
They're going to learn something from the whole experience. I mean, we can sacrifice a tree.
Teacher Kendall Cunningham explained.
So if it were to have gotten to a point that it didn't look like it was going to be a safe activity anymore, then I probably would have intervened and said, okay, now it's time to stop. We can't do this anymore.
Be safe.
And the lesson wasn't over. Cunningham gave the boys some tools for learning. Small saws, in fact, used under her watchful eyes.
Be careful for your fingers.
Preschool director Madison Powell.
We just make sure that we're going with the comfort level of the teachers and the kids. Our teachers have maybe a higher tolerance for that because we do see such value in risky play and what that does to their decision making. Mm-hmm. We make sure that they're within reach. They're not going to fall from great heights according to us. Great heights for them might be the top of this bench.
Mm-hmm. A certain level of risk is allowed.
Mm-hmm. It sure is, and it's healthy.
Also considered healthy, going outside in most types of weather. We visited on a very hot day, but even on cold winter days in Michigan, the kids bundle up and head out. Parents we talked with hear no complaints.
They would love to be outside all the time. So it's just maybe the snowsuits that they wear are phenomenal. It keeps them so warm that they don't even know it's cold. Doesn't even bother them. They love it.
They would live outside if I let them live outside, and they're extremely curious. They're always asking me questions, whether we're playing in the backyard, we're out here for hikes, or anywhere outside.
But will these nature kids be academically prepared for kindergarten? That's the subject of study right now by a Michigan State University research team, which followed the children around last year, rain or shine, gathering data with GoPro cameras and conducting interviews to test their skills. Lori Skibby, one of the lead investigators, told us the early results.
What we found is that children here at the Nature-Based Center did just as well on our literacy measures, our language measures, our science measures, and some of our executive function measures as children in the more traditional setting. So they learned just as much.
Does that surprise you so far?
At how similar they are, yes, that surprised me. The rates of learning were fairly equivalent across all of our schools. We're pretty much the same.
And can you draw any preliminary conclusions from that?
I think you can say that a nature-based setting can prepare you for kindergarten, as well as a traditional setting if it's done well.
That study continues for now, along with the hunt for the next insect.
I found the spider. Look, he's calling out.
For the PBS NewsHour, I'm Jeffrey Brown at the Chippewa Nature Center in Midland, Michigan.